Welcome to Penumbra. The conversation starts now. Good afternoon and welcome to Penumbra. I'm excited to have a guest with me today. The Honorable Glen Watkins, who is a federal Social Security administrative law judge. Glenn, thanks for taking the time and welcome to Penumbra.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Glenn, before we get into what you do as a Social Security administrative law judge, let's just talk about your background. So tell me where you grew up.
Grew up here in Tampa, Florida. The funny thing is, one of the few Floridians or Tampa people, especially, my great grandfather was born in Tampa, and I don't
Oh,
have a single relative. I went to Chamberlain. I was a North Tampa kind of guy, and as I said earlier, I don't have a single family relative on my side that does not live in the Tampa Bay area. I don't have a cousin, aunt, a nephew, anything that does not live in Tampa.
that's extremely rare these days, especially post-COVID, because it seems like from everywhere else in the United States moved to Tampa all at one time.
I was born here and my whole family's here and I've left for jobs and I've always come home. This has always just been home and it's what I know. And I have four sons and all four of my sons are born in Tampa. And I'm hoping all four come back.
Yeah, that's always the hope that they go away for a little while and then eventually they all come home.
I've had enough. I'm banking on odds.
That's right. So after graduating from Chamberlain, what'd you do next?
Well, it's interesting. So I got into Florida State in Florida for undergrad, and I kind of partied too hard in high school. So my dad, in his infinite wisdom, which looking back on my life was a smart decision, said he wasn't going to pay for me to go to college away. So I went to HCC, and at the same time, he wasn't going to pay for it. So I enlisted in the Army for GI Bill.
Awesome. And then how long you were at HCC and how long were you enlisted in the Army?
Oh, so when I signed my contract, I signed a 6 years active reserve, 2 years IR, which is inactive reserve. During my first year of HCC, went to boot camp. So it took me about 3 years to get through community college because I was gone nearly a year doing Army boot camp and AIT. So yeah, I was gone for a year, about my 3 years, and I graduated HCC, and then I went to Florida State to get my degree in
Okay,
finance.
nice. And just to touch on the boot camp aspect of that real quick, is boot camp everything that you hear it is? Is it better? Is it worse?
It's interesting. I was a military policeman, and it was one of the few MOSs, which is MOS just means your job in the military. Your boot camp and your AIT, which is your training, were in one place. So I was at Fort McClellan, Alabama for 4 months. It was very challenging because because I grew up, my dad was decently successful, and I never had to deal with just having to be on my own because my parents helped and whatnot, but it was the first time I ever was, like, on my own, like, having to survive with no mommy or daddy to help me. So, it was a life-changing experience going to boot camp. Just because you had no one I was 19, and you had no one to go to except for yourself. No mom and dad anymore. So, it was hard, but mentally, it was more challenging in the sense of you had to do on your own.
Okay. And after you got done with boot camp, graduated from HCC, then you went to FSU. Is that right?
To FSU, yes. I went to FSU. I didn't do well there, in the sense of grades. I had amazing time.
Right.
So, but I had really poor grades. To be a lawyer, you have to take the LSAT, and I had a good LSAT score. Stetson, I went to Stetson Law School here in Tampa, St. Pete. They were gracious enough to let me in after I talked to them, explained to them that I had a good LSAT score, bad GPA, but I was smart, just stupid in college. And they were graceful enough to let me in. And at that point, I was old enough. I graduated with honors from Stetson. And during my last year at Stetson, I applied for Navy JAG because I really enjoyed the military. I loved being a part of the military. And I didn't go Army because their bases were they're inland and they're in horrible spots. And Navy, I'm like, you're near water, so it can't be too bad. So I went
Right.
Navy JAG.
So at that time when you went Navy JAG, were you already out of the Army or were you still in the reserves? How's that work?
I was just out. The 6 years were pretty much during college and my 2 years of law school. So I pretty much finished up my commitment to the Army my last year of law school.
Okay. And then you signed up immediately to go into the Navy JAG?
Did. And then that's even a funnier story. I saw so my last year law or my second year of law school, I applied for Navy JAG, and they were confident I was getting in, had good grades, and I'd been Army, so I didn't really look for any jobs, and I graduated December '98 from law school, and I was notified that I didn't get picked up for Navy JAG right at, like, a week before graduation because the, federal system works their fiscal year goes from October 1st to September 29th, and they'd already reached their numbers when my application got submitted. So they already met the numbers, so I didn't get in. So I became a prosecutor in Tallahassee, Florida, and I thought that was gonna be my life, and I went up there and I became a prosecutor, and I took the bar, and the day before or no, it was about couple months before, my recruiter called me and said, "Hey, you didn't get in." Or this was excuse me, I'm sorry. Before I became prosecutor in, like, December of '98, recruiter called and said I didn't get in. I said, and I became a prosecutor in Tallahassee, Florida. So I go up there and live my life, and I get a call from him. He goes, "Hey, do you wanna reapply for Navy JAG?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm like, "What are my chances?" He's like, "Well, I've never had anyone reapply and get in." I was like, "Okay, well, let's try it anyway." So I reapplied, but I'm living my life, and the day before I'm swearing into the bar, he calls me and says, "Hey, they picked you up." I'm like, "Great." He's like, "Have you passed the bar yet?" I'm like, "I get my results tomorrow." And he's like, "Well, if you swear into the Florida bar, now you're a lawyer and you can't be in the student program to get in JAG." I'm like, "Crap." So the morning I found out I got in, they're going to swear me in as a prosecutor. And he's like, "No, you can't. You can't. You're not getting in. You can't be a JAG then." So I found out that morning and I left my job and I said I had to go home and I'd meet him between Tampa and Tallahassee. I met him in Gainesville at Bennigan's and swore in the parking lot to be a Navy JAG. Driving back to Tallahassee, and I then swore into the Florida bar. And I told it, yeah. So I quit the state attorney's office and went JAG 3 months later.
And did you have to relocate after joining the JAG?
Well, yes, since I'd been Army before, they waived there's a regular boot camp for, doctors and lawyers in the Navy, and they waived that for me because I was prior Army. So I went straight to Naval Justice School, which is the Navy legal world, in Newport, Rhode Island in August of, 1999. So I drove from Tallahassee, Florida in August straight to Newport, Rhode Island for, Navy JAG school.
Okay, and, how long were you in the Navy JAG?
Well, I finished Navy JAG school in, like, 4 months, and I was in New Orleans. That was my first tour as a defense counsel. Just it's like a public defender in the regular world. I was a Navy defense counsel for 2 years, and then my second duty station was in National Security Agency at Fort Meade, and I was there on September 11th. So I dealt NSA stuff. FISA court, which is Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, if people know about that, for my final 2 years of my Navy JAG status.
Okay, and was this the path that you always envisioned for yourself going, from the Army, HCC in the Army to Florida State to Stetson, then the Navy JAG? Is that what you always wanted to do?
No, no, it really wasn't. It's one of those weird my basic degree at Florida State was in finance, and in my younger age, I saw the movie Wall Street, and I thought I was gonna work on Wall Street. So, it's kinda reason so I ended up wanting to go to DC Town Law School. Is the only school in the country that has an LM, which is a master's in law after law school, and securities regulation. So, this was kind of became like a fork in the road. I thought how to get into being Wall Street, and my plan and I waived in DC bar. My plan after law school was to go to New York and work for the SEC. That was the dream that I kind of went to because to work in New York City is kind of hard to go from Stetson to New York City. So I kind of took that path and moved to another path to get my way up there.
Okay, and so did you obtain an LLM while you were in the JAG?
I did. I have my LM from Georgetown, but as anyone knows who's listening, my ex-wife, who I married, she went to Florida State Law School, and she moved with me from New Orleans to DC, and she's a lawyer. And when I got done my Navy JAG, she didn't want to go to New York. She's from Miami. So we negotiated and we decided to come to Tampa. Because I love Tampa as a beginning conversation. So we came back to Tampa and I found a job here in Tampa at the public defender's office in the major crimes unit.
And then how long were you at the public defender's office?
In public defender's office for about a year and a half, 2 years since I did major crimes in the Navy. The Navy, day one, they put you in to whatever crime appears. So you could be a 1 week attorney and you're doing felonies. And I did some child molestation cases and stuff. So I had experience in sex crimes. So they put me in a sex crimes unit right away. And I did well. And a private firm recruited me, a private criminal defense firm recruited me. So I left after that year and a half for more money and went to a private criminal defense firm.
All right. And how long were you with the private criminal defense firm?
I was there for about a year, and I realized I just did not like criminal defense. I mean, everyone needs a defense, but as a lawyer, you realize this was going to be my life, and I decided this is not one of my life. At that point, I got recruited over to the Florida AG's office in the economic crimes unit, which is sounds criminal but civil. So was part of the beginning internet crimes unit for the Florida AG's office under Charlie Crist at that time. So I worked there doing civil um, FDUPTA, which is this Fair and Deceptive Law Act. So I did that for a couple years. And then my wife got pregnant. And at that point, we needed real money. So I left that and went to a regular law firm doing construction litigation to make money so we could survive.
All right. And then during this whole process, when did the wheels start to turn in your head where you thought, I might like to be a judge one day?
Well, as I think most lawyers, as a practicing lawyer, and you see judges up there making, in my opinion, at the moment, ridiculous decisions, not based on the law and not based on what I felt was appropriate. It was always an idea in my head. As I said earlier, my ex-wife was a lawyer, and when I went to DC at the NSA, she applied for jobs, and since she was not a bar member up there, she got a job with the Social Security Administration, and I had the opportunity to meet judges there, and I was like, "That's something I like. That is a very interesting position." But I'd ask her, and she's like, "Well, all the judges are like 80 years old, and you're in your mid-20s." So, and then she told me once I was at the private firm, we moved back to Tampa, it opened the list for administrative law judges for the first time in 25 years. And at that point, I was 32, and the minimum requirement was 8 years of legal experience. And I had just 8 years. And I'm like, I'm going to apply. And she's like, you're an idiot because you are the minimum. You're the minimum. And she's judges are 70. You're 32. And there's never been somebody that young. And it's my whole life. I'm like, hey, I'll try. I'll roll the dice. So I put my application in and and you have to go to interviews. I had to fly to DC twice for interviews and tests. And at 34, I got selected. I was the youngest administrative law judge ever at 34 that got picked up. And they put me in
That
Greenville, South
that's
Carolina.
amazing. And you got assigned to Greenville?
Yes, when you apply for judge, you say what cities you're willing to go to, and I put almost all of them except for the big cities. We couldn't afford to live in LA or New York under government salaries, and I got Greenville, South Carolina.
All right. And tell me a little bit more about the process. It said you had to fly up to DC and interview with some folks. Who were you interviewing with?
OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, they have first of all, you fly up and you have to take a test, and the test is kinda like a law school, it's questions, what would you do in this situation? And then finally, they give you a paragraph, and how would you handle this? Um, and you have to write back in that day, before laptops were as so you had to handwrite, like a blue book we did in law school, but you had to handwrite how you'd handle it, and, you submit it. So, yeah, it was like 4 hours they gave you, and you had this and it was probably 30 pages, like a 30 pages judicial opinion about the facts and the conclusion and the law, and it wasn't based on Social Security, because when you apply for LJ, it can be for it doesn't have to be Social Security. DC has ALJs. Many of, agencies have ALJs, administrative law judges, tax, but Social Security has 90% of them. So you apply and they make a list of the highest scores, and the scores are based on your exam and your resume. And then Social Security says they want 40 judges, and OPM sends them a list of the top 120 applicants score-wise, and then they picked from that list.
And so after you did the interviews, you took the test, obviously you got put on that short list that you just
Yeah.
described, and eventually that goes up to ultimately the president for selection. And who was the president that appointed you, to be a ALJ?
Well, so I think it was Bush. As presidents come and lists come at different times, and we get notified different times. I believe it was Bush, but as they regimes change, and to be honest with you, they let the agency with the scores kind of, and it's more of a sign off by the president.
Okay, yeah, so you never actually sat down with, George W. Bush in the Oval Office and reviewed your scores?
I would love to, but it was more based on your interview score, the score you get in a resume, and the score you get on your test. So, yeah.
And so you ultimately got selected, you moved to Greenville, South Carolina, and how long were you there?
I was there 2 years, and so once I got there, goals, I said earlier in this conversation, is always come back to Tampa, and Greenville's the most it was amazing city, great city, but as I said earlier, home is Tampa. So I put on a transfer list. You can put on a transfer list, and, every few years, people retire, and they need spots where people go, and I was lucky enough, a spot came available in Tampa, and they transferred me back to Tampa, and this was in it was in 2009, 'cause my son was born 1 month after we got back to Tampa. So 2009, I got back to Tampa.
Your appointment, is a lifetime appointment, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here, and
And
there's no age category. I can do this job until the day I die. We had a judge in Charlotte who was 92.
all right, I guess that explains why there's not much turnover, in your department.
It is I tell everybody, I was blessed the day I got this job, and it is an amazing job, and I love it, and I plan on working until as I said, I've done it now 18 years, and I love it as much today as I did 18 years ago.
Tell me a little bit about the cases that come before you.
What happens is we all it's insurance. We all pay in, every working person pays in for disability insurance, and what happens is for me to you or Bill Gates or anybody else. Once, as a working person, that something happens and you can't work anymore, you can apply for disability insurance. You say, I'm unable to work anymore and I need disability insurance. And you apply through the agency and it goes to one level. If they deny you, you can appeal that and they review it again. If they deny it again, then it goes in front of a judge, and that's me. So if I deny you, we have an appeals council and they can send it back to me or they can deny it. If they deny it, it goes to a federal judge, United States federal judge, and it can go up to the federal court of appeals. And finally, it can end up in the United States Supreme Court.
Okay, so you are one level of scrutiny along a very long process if somebody is trying to obtain disability benefits, through the Social Security Administration.
Exactly. Yes. I'm the first level after just a regular agency level. Then it becomes a judge decision, and that's what I do. And I review medical records. And it's funny, it's not legally it's legal, there's laws, but a lot of it is just saying I broke my back 3 times. I've had cancer. Most of it is 99% is medical. And I've kind of in my 18 years, I've had to become very proficient in medical knowledge because that's what it is. Can you do your past work or can you do another job? So it doesn't matter enough if you were a heavy job, you're a construction worker. We don't care. If you're under a certain age, you could still do a sedentary job, a ticket taker, the person. So that's the confusion from some people. It's not that you can do your past work. It's can you do any work in the national economy?
Right, and you're assessing whether or not person that's before you can do any level of work, not necessarily just the job that they're particularly doing when they got injured or the injury that's preventing them from running a crane or something like that.
Exactly. And that's the confusion from a lot of people is that like I can't lift 100 pound, you know, piece of machinery anymore. That's not what I'm saying. And it depends on age categories. It changes on at 50 and 55. But Yeah, it's not if you can do your job, it's can you do any job.
What is your caseload like on a day-to-day basis? How many
Man,
hearings do you have?
we're supposed to do about 500 a year. So, I allocate about 50 a month. That's the goal, is to do about 50 hearings.
How long is the average hearing?
45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. And are these all video remote, Zoom, or are they in person? How do you conduct your hearings?
Before COVID, they were all in person. They were all in person. After COVID, 95%, 95% are by phone now. 5% are video and 5% are in person. And that's up to the claimant. Any person is allowed a in-person hearing if they want it by law.
Okay. And in preparing for these hearings, obviously, you're provided the, claimant's medical records and their history, their file, everything comes before you, and you evaluate that in preparation for your hearing, and then are they generally represented? Are they generally pro se, or how do they come before you?
Yes, I get all their medical records, and I would say 85% are represented, and probably 15% are pro se, and it's maybe in close to 90% are represented.
Alright, and if you could quantify it, if that's a thing that you can do, for the claimants that come before you, how many do you approve their claim or deny their claim, if you have those numbers?
Yeah. I don't keep track. And it's funny, the agency role, it's one of those weird cases, things. Judges are human beings, and there are judges that I've met that grant almost everything. They're near 100%. And there's judges that grant almost nothing. But like closer to 25%. I believe I'm more in the middle. I think I'm more 50-50. And that's just because it's not as much law based. It's more when someone has a bad back and they're 34. It's so much a judgment call looking at MRIs and their testimony and doctors' opinions. It's really difficult because you're making a judgment call of somebody. And a funny thing is we dole out, as Social Security Administrative Law judges, more money than any judge in the country. Because if you get approved for disability, it's millions of dollars. Like it's lifetime of benefits. So, as a judge, I feel taxpayers hired me and gave me the obligation to protect our tax money. But then claimants have the right to be found, if they can't work, they deserve to get paid. So you're kind of referee between the taxpayers and the claimants. And it's a judgment call. And every case is different because every person is different.
Yeah, and obviously, if you pick up a newspaper or, look at the computer because people don't pick up newspapers anymore, the prospect of the Social Security benefits just going bankrupt in, I think, less than 10 years in America is obviously something that is looming on the horizon. So as essentially a guardian of that system, do you find that there are a lot of people that come before you that are trying to essentially exploit the system in the parlance of waste, fraud, and abuse, which we've seen? And how often does that happen? And if that does come before you and you identify that, what can you do as a judge?
Well, everyone I see, everyone being 99%, have issues. They have issues. They have mental or physical issues. And, it's trying to find that line where are you too disabled to work or not? I have to say, 100% of people I meet and see are struggling. They are struggling because I don't think anyone is doing well in life and successful and go, you know what? I want to give up my job for disability. I don't believe that happens. Think that people want to work and they really do. I think it's a human nature. I think most people, nearly all, if they were feeling great, they would work. But a lot of these people they do have health and mental issues. And the question is it past this artificial line that we create or I create in my head? I think, yeah, I don't think there's fraud in the sense of that they're trying to take advantage of the system. I think they're just at wit's end and they've kind of run out of ideas. And this is something that they're trying because everyone I see has it. Again, 90% have a disability. The question is it so big they can't work? And that's my job, determine if it's so big.
Right.
And always things comment. Stephen Hawking was a paraplegic, and he's clearly disabled under anyone's standard. But he was brilliant enough, he could have a job. And that's the question, what I do. It's not if you're disabled. Are you disabled and can't work. Like with my job, I'm blessed with the government. I could be blind and we would hire people to take notes for me and everything. Well, I could do my job as a blind person. I could do my job with no legs. So I could do my job with almost any disability as long as it's mental. But that's not given to everybody, if that makes sense. So that's the weird thing.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, obviously, where someone's not coming before you and says, "This is my get rich quick scheme. I'm going to bang up my body and go through all these, surgeries and whatnot and hurt my back. And then I'm going to
Yeah.
go before Judge Watkins and get a big payday." Obviously, your time's probably better spent somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, you're capped. I mean, as they say, we all play Social Security and there's issue. I mean, the most you can get a month, like again, me, Bill Gates, Michael Jordan, you, whoever, the most you can get is probably 3 grand a month. And you can't be working. You cannot, to get disability, you cannot work for 12 months. So you would have to be willing to give up your job.
Yeah, I guess that's where the fraud that you hear about comes in, where somebody comes before you and gets the disability check start coming in. They also go out and take another job at the factory or the warehouse or wherever and get that income coming in, but don't come back and bother to tell you that, oh, yeah, by the way, now I work at Amazon.
And we follow that. You will get they look at earnings, and after you get disability, and if you get earnings, there's a trial work period we give people. Let's say you broke your back, but now it's getting better, and you try to go back to work, which we all want you to. And you do it for like a 3, 4 weeks, and you're like, I can't do it anymore. We give you a trial work period to go try, and you're fine. You keep on disability. But if you work long enough, then we cut you off. And then that's the whole deal. We'll go after the benefits that you received, back benefits, and it's called overpayments. And we'll go back and collect that money.
What responsibilities as a judge do people generally underestimate? Like your role as a judge, what's most underestimated or maybe misunderstood about what you do?
Well, I think people think, because I'm a little hard on the judges, that I want to deny people. And that's the complete opposite. I want, if you broke your back or you're in a car accident and lost your leg or whatever the case may be, this is a great system because we don't want to be like other countries where people are on the streets, not being able to work and are starving. This is an insurance program we pay into that we want to help people who became disabled and can't work now. We want you to have enough money to have a place to live and eat and everything else because we don't want people on the street. And it's an important system and it's a great system. And why we were why we have us as judges, as referees, is to determine we want people to work if they can work, and we want people to get disability if they can't work. I think there's both sides. I think there's people who think everyone gets on disability. They're lazy people. They don't want to work and they get disability. And that's not true. There's people with mental and physical problems that aren't able to work. But there's also people who just, for whatever reason, don't want to work and try to collect this as a way to sit home. And that's why there's us out there as a gatekeeper trying to figure out, again, as I said earlier, we have taxpayers on one side we need to be concerned with, and we have people who need help on the other side. And we're trying to make the call, and it's not easy.
Right. So you're trying to sort out the meritorious claims from the non-meritorious claims, protect the system, yet also serve in a capacity where those who actually need the insurance benefit get what they deserve because that's what the system's in place for.
Exactly. It's an insurance program, and we want disabled people to get the help they need. And I think every human being wants that. And I think every human being wants people who are able to work to go to work. And that's the decision I have to make at every day.
If you could eliminate one thing from your job tomorrow, what would it be and why?
What would I limit? I mean, the easy answer is I wish people would be honest. But if people weren't honest, I guess I wouldn't have a job. Anyone who applied would get the benefits, and who people wouldn't apply if they weren't benefits. So I would like to limit that, but I don't want to eliminate my job. But just, I just would like people who need help. And it's funny you say that. When we all drive around, you see homeless people on corners. And the problem sometimes is the most disabled people don't have the ability to ask for help. or to get disability benefits in front of me because they don't, because you have to apply for the benefits and you have to go through the system and you have to make phone calls. You have to get to the hearing. And if you're, I mean, some people mentally or so physically disabled, they can't even start the process. And I feel like sometimes the most disabled people in our country who deserve Social Security disability the most, I'll never see and I can't help. So that's what I would change. I would like somehow for, because when I drive by, I live in South Tampa, and I see a lot of homeless people, and I would like to help them, but they're so far past, they can't get into the system.
Yeah, and, that's unfortunate. Are you seeing the system working how it's is it intended to work, or is there or could it be working better?
I mean, I think anything could work better, but they really have done, I've noticed actually after COVID, we've done a really good job of tracking people. Because let's get new, we have homeless people. But we need to contact you for the hearing date, time. But now with more phone hearings, and we do a great outreach. We dig, I swear, than the CIA trying to find where you are once you apply for benefits, a phone number, an address to track you down. So we can have this phone hearing so we can get you the benefits you deny or not that you deserve. Like anything else, what I would like to improve would just be the outreach. It's to find the people, the most needy people that are so far out of sight, they don't either know about the benefits or they just can't the process. Because we've become so phone and computer generated now that if you're living on the street, like I was gonna tell you can apply online, but if I don't have a phone or I can't read or if my mental, I can't even fathom the process. And I don't know exactly how. I don't know if it's send people to homeless shelters. And also we're doing a very good job with the VA. The military individuals, they announce now when you leave the military, they explain to them about disability benefits to apply. They are now training service members to apply for disability. So we've done a really good job because when I was in the military, when I got out, I don't remember any kind of apply for Social Security disability if you're having, again, I was a lawyer. I never saw combat, so it was never my mindset. But we're doing a really good job, I think, now of explaining that to service members.
Yeah, and that's a good point you raise as far as getting the initial application process started. Like, basically, today, if you don't have an iPhone or a smartphone, which I like to call life's remote control, you're basically locked out of our world. Like, you can't book a plane ticket. You can't hardly go anywhere without having that phone and clicking a link and typing in some six-digit code that's sent to your text message just to get the process started. So obviously, that's a major impediment if you don't have that first step, which is the device that's going to allow you to gain access to the system just in the instant. You're never going to get to you.
We have local offices, but you got to find them. You got to get there. You got to know the process. And again, if you're mentally or physically limited, that's a very big challenge. These are very big challenges. And I always think I'm not seeing what I believe is I seen disabled people all the time, but the most disabled, I'm probably not seeing because they're so disabled, they can't even start the process.
Yeah, because if you go to one of those offices, probably the first question they're going to ask you is, "What's your email?" Fill out this form. What's your email? What's your address? They don't have either one of those things.
Yes. Yes, and you gotta get the paperwork, Some have PO boxes and and a lot of organizations are trying. We have the, legal service office, they represent claimants, and they see a lot of the people, but those are they're funded by donations, so they don't have a large bank to go, go track down clients. So, yeah, it's and people are always like, "Why are there homeless people if we have disability?" I'm like, "Well, I don't think they can get through the process." I mean, I think each and every one of the people who see this, you see people on the corner and they're clearly disabled, but they have to make it through the process. And it's kinda you kinda have to be non-disabled enough to make it through the process, but disabled enough to get benefits.
And that's I guess that's a real catch-22 in the system. I guess if you're too
Yes.
disabled, you may not actually be able to get the benefits that you actually need and deserve.
Exactly. And how do you go find those people? And I don't have an answer.
Is there, speaking of which, is there any implementation of AI in your department, like, to assist tracking those people down, assisting them with the process, like, shepherding them through the process? Is there any utilization of that?
Not that I know of. I haven't seen any AI at my job.
Do you think AI, as it continues to unroll and get better, do you think it could be helpful in your world?
I mean, I don't the problem is I'm 52, so I'm not AI as proficient as my kids. I don't really but I don't know how it can help you find people on the corner of the street or who are too far gone to be able to avail themselves of the system. I mean, I think for that, I think this is gonna take manpower. I think you would just have to, you know, homeless shelters or and then a lot of people, for a reason, they don't want help, and even though they need it, but that's part of the condition. That's the you said that's catch-22 is that they need it, but for whatever issues they're having, they don't know they need it. So that's the difficulty because they still have to apply and they still have to come to the hearing.
What habit would you say helped you be successful in life?
What I think what has helped me is that I grew up in poverty. So my father went to prison at 19. And he actually met my mom. My mom worked at bail bonds company that he went to get a bond at, and they stayed together, and he was selling cocaine in 1969, and when they got out, um, he stayed with my mom, and she got pregnant, had me, and he was going to USF, and, so I think what I have is I've been I've been poor. I've seen and then he opened a business, a used car business, and a lot of that also dealt with people who had issues. So, it's not like I was born and raised with a silver spoon. So, I've been able to live with and I've dealt with people who have been on the poor side, the wealthier side. So, I think I've been through it all. I understand what it's like to, not have money for, dinner? So, as I said, my dad couldn't get a job after he graduated USF because he's an ex-felon. So, he started a
How
business
long was your father in prison for?
2 years, 2 and a half, I guess.
So he graduated from USF, but when he came out, he couldn't get a traditional job in the business world because he had a felony on his record.
Yes.
So that forced him to be an entrepreneur.
Yes. So, he got out of prison, started going to St. Petersburg Junior College, and then he went to USF, and what he would do is he would buy cars out of the paper, and then he'd resell them. Like, he'd buy a car for $900 and sell it for $1,400, and he's like, he could make $500 that way or work for 3 months, and that's how he generated money, and then he couldn't get a job after he graduated USF. He had money saved, and he bought a piece of property on Florida Avenue, and he put cars there, and he ended up being there for 30 years, and he was a very smart 'cause businessman, and since he understood and this was a life lesson. This is the most important lesson I ever learned in life. Wealthy people buy a new Porsche or BMW, and they go show their friends, "Look at my new Porsche or BMW," and that's the wealthy person. People in the lower still have cars, and they still want to impress their friends or spouses or family. So he was a buy here, pay here car lot, but back in the, '70s, dealers would just buy crap and sell crap out. But when he got a car, he would paint it, clean it, and those cars would be cleaner and nicer than new cars because he understood that everybody wants something nice. And he would make it run, he would fix it up and everything else. Selfishness is his part because what he wanted was a car payment, not the car back. And he wanted to go to work. And so his idea was, I'm going to make this car run. If it breaks, I'm going to fix it and put money in your bill because I want you to go to work so you could pay the car payment. And so he was there for 30 years on same address. And that's kind of my job. Because I dealt with people who may be on the lower rung of society, what we consider, but they're people like everybody else, and they want the same things everybody else. The only difference is they have less money, and that's what I learned from him. Palm State Auto Sales, 12204 North Florida Avenue.
Nice. And did your dad did he finance the vehicles himself, or did they go through a third party lender?
See, that's the difference. back in the '70s, there weren't all these Hyundais and all these different car manufacturers. There was, like, Chevy, Ford, back then it was Datsun, now Nissan, Toyota, and you had to have credit to buy cars. You had to have good credit, and for a lot of people, they didn't have good credit. But in Tampa, we don't have mass transit then, and we don't have it now. They needed a car to get to work. So he was financing these people, because they needed a car. And he was able to be successful because he learned earlier and they'll pay what they need to pay to get the car. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
so that's what I learned
Um,
at that base.
that's great. When you're done being an administrative law judge, when you're 92 or 93 or 94, maybe you make it to be 100, so you're the youngest and the oldest, to ever do it to ever do it. How do you wanna be remembered?
I think the most important thing is I try to be fair. Some people make fun I don't pay enough cases, some people, but I really do. I look at each case individually. I really do. And I try to do the right thing. As I said, it's like the old cartoon, there's like a devil on one side and an angel on one side. And I have the taxpayers here and I have the person here. And I really try to call the best of my ability balls and strikes. I really do. At the end of the day, I don't mind paying you and I don't deny if you're not. I want to be fair. And I guess at the end of the day, that's the goal. And I'm wrong at times and evidently, but I try my
And
best.
that's what I mean, you've referred to yourself a few times in our discussion as a referee, and obviously that's what you want out of any referee is that the referee is fair. Just, call balls, call strikes, but call the game fair.
That's what I try to do. It's funny. They learned earlier on when I became a judge, and they were like, "There's people I grant, and I see jail records, and I always say there's times I've paid child molesters and I've denied saints because disability doesn't matter. It's if you're just able to work. It's not if you want a drug user, child molester, whatever negative connotation you want to put on somebody, or on the good side, how great they were. That's not what it's about. Can you work or not? It's just simply again I use umpire balls and strikes, not about how good or bad a person you were.
Well, Glenn, thanks for all these answers. We're going to move into what I like to call the speed round, which is
Yeah.
just some fun questions. They're basically yes or no questions. If you want to expound on your answer, feel free to do so. If you don't, a yes or no will
I,
suffice. And I think you'll understand as we move along. Dogs or cats?
you already got me the first one. I love them both. I do. I am an
Oh,
animal person. I can't lie. I love dogs and I love cats.
that's a good
But
answer.
probably if I had to get one, if you really push me to it, it'd be a cat.
Wow. Okay. The moon landing, yes or no?
It's real.
And to back up really quick, because I think you're the first person that said cats. Why cats?
You know, I mean, we have a dog right now. We don't have a cat. My first animal was a cat, and I like them. And also I'm a bit a lazy human being, and I don't have to walk them. They have a litter box. So as I have 4 kids, I like their independence. And you can go. You don't have to come home every day at 5 o'clock to let the cat out.
That's right. My father was a veterinarian, and we had all sorts of animals growing up, and we had dogs, cats, exotic animals, barnyard type animals out in the yard, all sorts of things. I had a cat, I had a Siamese cat, and one thing about cats is you really have to earn their respect. They're not going to give it to you easy. The cat's gonna kind of look at you and like, oh, you're home. Great. What now? Yeah,
They're not easy, and I respect them for that.
that's a good answer. Coke or Pepsi?
I am a Coke Zero person or a Diet Pepsi, but I hate Diet Coke, but Coke Zero is my favorite.
Do you believe in aliens?
Yes, it makes no sense to have a world this size, not to have other beings. That makes no logical sense.
That's my position as well. If you could fly, time travel, or be invisible, which one would you pick and why?
Time travel, so I could bought Bitcoin at $1.
What's your favorite food?
Steak,
What's your favorite sport?
football, college football.
Do you think the impact of NIL has ruined the game of college football for your watching pleasure?
It has destroyed my team. I went to Florida State, and we have no money. So, yes, it's destroyed my team. We used to dominate in the '80s, and since we're broke, yes, it has destroyed my team. So, yes.
Yeah, I always say if I could be one other thing other than a lawyer, it'd be a college football coach because it's the only career in the world that you can absolutely fail and yet get paid millions of dollars on your way out the door, time and time again. It's a great deal if you can get it.
It is a great deal, and as long as you're not Lane Kiffin.
He's the master of
My
it.
son's my son's at Ole Miss. I know you went to Ole Miss. My son's at Ole Miss right now, so Since we're on nice TV, I will not say my opinion of Lane Kiffin, but yes, that is the problem with college football is Lane Kiffin.
I think you can Google, Lane Kiffin and you'll not be short on opinions in the first 1,000 hits you get. What's your favorite hobby?
It is golfing. I played yesterday with my son who came in from Ole Miss last Friday. I'm horrible at it, but I really do enjoy it. And I've started picking up skeet shooting, and I've done some duck hunting, and I've really enjoyed the duck hunting side.
It's great. Does ketchup belong on a hot dog?
No, no, it does not.
What's your favorite book?
Right now I'm reading one of Dan Brown books. I've read them kind of lately in a row. He started off with the Angels and Demons, and he had those. Right now, I've got audio books. That's been my obsession lately, and the Alex Cross books.
Yeah. The good
That's
thing
my
about those
go-to.
books, the James Patterson and the Dan Brown books, I always say they're both the master of the half-page chapter. If you're at a stoplight, you can read a chapter or 2 and it's gonna want you to make you read more, but it doesn't require a lot of you. I know you probably read all day at your job, as do
Yes.
I, and the last thing you wanna do is, like, lay in bed and read something that's gonna, be super heavy and not entertaining.
I am reading also again reading Germs. It's by Diamond Guns. He's had a couple of them now. It's interesting. It's a book about his last name's Diamond, about how the kind of history of the world, how it's changed just because of guns, germs, and I wanna say steel. And I was listening to it last night when I was going to bed, how, like the one chapter I was actually listening to last night was how when the Spanish came to, the Aztecs, there were, like, 1,000,000 Aztecs, and there was only probably 100 of the, Spanish, and they defeated them because of guns and they had swords. And this was right out 1492 when America's covered. Yes, amazing book. Amazing.
If you're a Dan Brown fan, if you've not read Deception Point, which is one of his earlier books, it's not in the Da Vinci Code kind of format,
Yeah.
different characters, but it's a great read. It was the first one of his books that I read, and then I later read the other ones. But Deception Point I thought was a really fun read.
I've seen that. I read that one. Yes. Now I'm at the most recent one. And that's very fascinating. If anyone has a chance, right now I'm probably 75% done. And it's a fascinating book about the consciousness and if like how the human brain stores more information than it should be able to. And its whole concept is that we're like Wi-Fi, we're connecting to a cloud. Our brains are connecting to a cloud and we're just a source. Very fascinating conceptual thought process for that. Is it called The Answer or The Question? Let me see.
That sounds right.
It's a very fascinating, let me see, I have it up right now. Secret of Secrets. Secret of Secrets is what I'm looking at right now.
What is your favorite movie?
Wall Street.
What's your favorite song?
Favorite song. Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Great one. What is your favorite movie sequel?
Rambo.
Rambo?
Yep. Because First Blood was the first one. Rambo, the one everyone remembers, was the sequel.
That's awesome. That's an old movie, but, I'm sure it's due for a remake as well. I'm sure they'll be, making it again. Hopefully, they won't put Sylvester Stallone in it, because I think he's 88.
I love Rambo. I'm not a Star Wars person. Rambo is my love. It's a great movie.
Well, Glenn, thank you so much for taking your time. Really enjoyed our discussion. I appreciate you being so candid with your answers, and, I'd love to have you back on again another time.
Whenever you want. I have more craziness anytime you want it.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate it. So, thanks, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me on your show.